I've done before isn't inspiring to you now, you get to rewrite the narrative now. Claudia Ramirez, empowering you to become the optimal leader of your life. Let's turn on the Mindset Mic. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to episode 60 of Mindset Mic. Let's talk about the ego and the comparison game. I signed up for a marathon and I want to talk to you about this because I am starting off now. Actually, I was supposed to start like a week before, maybe like a week or two late, maybe to this game. And a lot of thoughts have come up. I understand that I am barely at the beginning and I'll have a lot more to share as time goes by, but it brought up some feelings and just thoughts and a perspective of something that I wanted to share. And first and foremost, if you're an athlete listening to this, or if you're an entrepreneur, if you're in the career space or relationships, all of this kind of plays a role. And as I always say, how you do anything, you do everything. And I believe that the lessons that we learn in sports are going to be so applicable in other areas of our life. And so I hope that this conversation really helps you in whatever it is that you're dealing with at the moment. My mom and dad always tell me that I am a very humble person. And they're like, honestly, it doesn't matter like what you do and what you accomplish. You're just always yourself. You're so down to earth. You're just this, you're just that. And maybe I'm not so humble for saying that, but it makes me, I think it's very accurate. Like, I'm just myself. I don't think I'm better than anybody. I treat everybody the same, from the person who gives me water at a restaurant, the doorman, in Central Park South while I'm going to work, the person who is corporate executive, somebody like really high, or somebody who I'm inspired by. Everybody is treated the same in my book. And I make sure that everybody feels seen. And my friends say that I am the same person on social media than I am in real life, which I know that is very accurate because I am so goofy and so passionate and so myself. And so I can really have those polar opposite conversations where I'm talking to you about nothing and then I'm talking to you about something that's very deep. So that's just me. But I also know that my ego really comes out when it comes to running. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because that ego of I must and I have to be better, and just comparing yourself, and it could be very toxic. It could be very positive if we use it in an intelligent and strategic way, but it can also be very, very toxic. And so right now I wanted to take time to acknowledge the fact that my ego has come up. And I've had to shift it and leverage it and give it a different perspective for it to not be an ego, right? And for it to be something that serves me. I signed up for a marathon. Okay, let me take a step back. I signed up for a marathon. I'm going to run the Philadelphia Marathon on November 24th. I've never done a marathon in my life. I've coached many, many athletes, and I've been invited to coaching programs because I've been a runner all my life, and I know my stuff, and I'm really, really good at it. However, I haven't done a marathon myself. As you know, after college, I took a long break. I actually remember telling my mom the words, I don't think I'll ever want to run again. And I remember exactly where I was. It's like this little, I want to say, maybe 200-meter track in a Memorial Park in Houston. And she was like, I think you're kind of jumping the gun on that one. And I said, no, Mom, like, I love doing HIIT workouts on my own at the park. I'm in great physical shape and I'm just depleted from running. And after that, I kind of started feeling really in shape, and I started running and challenging myself. And I had created a running plan for myself that kind of gave me a combination of not feeling like a couch to 5K. And there isn't anything wrong with the couch to 5K, but whenever you come from a high intensity and performance background, you don't want to consider yourself like someone who's starting from scratch. Like, you still want to, going back to the ego, you want to kind of start from somewhere that feels more you. And maybe not so beginner, because you're not a beginner. You're just beginning now. So how do you shift that to make you feel, again, not out of shape and not killing yourself because you're running too fast and too soon? And that's what I was doing. I was running buck wild for 2-3 days, and then I would just be so hurt or sore, and I would just take 2 months off. And this happened for like 2 years. And so finally, I decided to create this program for myself, and I have kind of fallen in love with running again. And through coaching as well, it has given me a different perspective of what it can do in my life. And that was actually one of the inspiring factors for me to come back to running when I was a high school coach in Houston. And I share this with you because a lot of times with this journey, going into the comparison game, we hear this all the time, like, don't compare yourself to anyone, only compare yourself to like your future self or where you are right now. And I'm going to say, okay, hold on, how about if we do compare? Because I just made a video for Instagram saying that we shouldn't compare ourselves to even our old self, but I'm kind of reframing this right now from like even just a few hours. How about if we do compare and we use that to create a new narrative? In terms of the ego, it's something that isn't helping us. And I mean, it could help us if we make it the reason for like what's fueling us to get to the other side, but not to prove anything to anyone, not to beat somebody or outdo someone or one up some. No, 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 no. But just for yourself. That's fine. I think that's healthy. And I think that it's interesting how we can use it to our advantage. It's like people saying that money is the root of all evil, which I would not agree with at all. Well, it's how you use money, right? It's how you use these resources and tools that you have to your advantage. And so having this ego, I also think that it could be a very negative thing and a very toxic thing and a very narcissistic thing. But at the same time, if you use it for a positive, it could be that that you need, that pep in your step, that's something that's going to help you move forward and just excel. I think it feels really, really good in that moment. However, for me, I don't know what it's like to run, and I'm going to use this word slow, because whatever is slow for me could be fast for someone else, and whatever is fast or slow for that person could be, it doesn't matter about anybody else. You're talking about yourself, and in this case, I'm talking about myself. And so that is number one, is painful for me. It's something that I don't enjoy, and my body is just in the eights, is where I thrive in like easy runs and long runs and things like that. But apparently I shouldn't be doing that according to my coach. And I should be totally okay with going at a much more conservative pace, should we say. And now going back to the comparison game, I think a lot of times we get caught in the I used to be better than this, or because my body has been able to do that, I can do it again. Because I have succeeded and excelled in this way, I should be able to recreate it exactly, verbatim, exactly as you see it. Not verbatim, that's not the right word, but you know what I mean. And I want to challenge that. I want to say, yes, let's compare ourselves, but in a positive way. Not as in like, oh, look at how great I am now in comparison to then, but to rewrite the narrative, like I was saying earlier. Let's rewrite the narrative and flip the script and really just say, okay, this is where I was in my 20s. This is where I am now in my 30s. And this is, or even just like, I'm talking like early 20s, late 20s, or mid, late 30s. I mean, you could really break this down in so many segments and still be successful in the approach. Because I don't know about you, but we've evolved. I know that a lot of people, maybe their life hasn't changed, but it has. You don't look the same. You don't feel the same. Maybe there are a few members added into the family. Maybe some have gone. Maybe you have a different job. Maybe you have more resources, less resources. Something has changed. And I think it's fair to consider that and create a new story. I didn't know what marathon running was. I was never told, hey, Claudia, you stopped at your prime. Maybe you should keep going. I thought that was it. I didn't know how people ran marathons. I didn't know how they got started. If I could go back, I would. But I can't do that anymore. And I'm not going to be the person who's like, I would have been so good. Like, I'm not going to be that person. Because I'm just starting off, by the way. But what I do want to focus on is running back then with 5Ks and 10Ks. And I know that it was still not as good as it could have been. And now it's going to be running a marathon. And later it's going to be running a marathon after having kids. And so you get to rewrite the new strong and use who you've been before to inspire you. If what you have done before isn't inspiring to you now, you get to rewrite the narrative now. And to say, okay, fine, that wasn't so great, but it can be now. And create that for yourself. I've spoken about this in another episode, change the narrative. And if what you've done before is phenomenal, then do it again. But in a specific way that applies to where you are right now. And not being obsessed with who we used to be. And that's where I think the good old days comes from. Which, I hate. You know that's one of my biggest pet peeves. Oh, the good old days. You have the best days of your life ahead of you. And you're living the best lives right now. And that is where I think it's so important, or I believe wholeheartedly, that we are missing the point. It's about rewriting the story and giving yourself a new chapter to be able to also leverage in the future. And I am coming to terms with, if I've done it once, I can do it again, and I keep doing it, and I keep doing it, and I keep doing it. Wait till I tell you the story that's unfolding even just this week. I am in awe. And it all starts back then, but it's different in the present. And in 10 years down the road, it's going to be a completely different ballgame. And I won't be able to look at my first marathon and say, oh, but it's because it's the first marathon. I didn't have kids, and I was single as in like unmarried, and and I was living in the best city, and I was living next to Central Park. No. This is where I have right now, and in the future I'll have something, and it'll be great in the future. And right now this is great, and the past has been wonderful. So it's about leveraging that comparison game. Instead of looking back and my body doesn't look the same, and I'm not so energetic, and this hurts and that, and I used to have a great job and I let it go because of this and that, and oh my goodness, let's just stop with the excuses. Because many times the ego, because it doesn't want to be hurt, it's what makes you come up with excuses. And we know that. I remember, this makes me like cringe. My parents had come to watch me. My parents didn't get to watch me a lot during college because I was injured a lot, or they lived really far away, or the ones that they never got to see a good race of mine, to be honest, in college. And I really would have loved for them to have seen some of the races, but there was one race that they came to, and they didn't get to watch me in the 10K the night before. And then the next day I could run the 5K, but I had a stress fracture in my foot. And frankly, I didn't want to run it. I was intimidated that all the soccer girls were sitting on the first row, and they were hella good. Excuse my language, but they were so good. And I was so intimidated that I knew that I wasn't at my best, and I wasn't going to perform well. And this was before my scholarship days. So I was still kind of building myself. And it was tough. No, I didn't run the 10K before. I ran something else before. And so I go back to that, and I'm like, it was my ego. It was my fear of failure and my ego not wanting to be hurt why I decided to do that. The soccer girls probably didn't even know my name. But I was in the mindset of wanting to fit in and wanting to be part of, and I didn't feel part of, and I just wanted for people to see the best that I could do. And because of that, I let it go. And it's a very embarrassing reality. And so I ended up not running the 5K. And I told my parents that it was because of a stress fracture, when in reality I knew I could have been in the race, but I decided not to out of fear. And I still remember myself like shouting at my parents from the bottom and being like, are you guys okay if I don't run? Because I have this like stress fracture and I don't want to make it worse. And they were right there in front of me. And I'm just like cringing at the thought of this. But obviously I was 20, 21, 20. And now it's different. So don't let the ego get the worst of you. Let it get the best of you. And use it to your advantage in that comparison game. And whether you've been a wonderful student before in the past or a wonderful athlete, or you have had the most successful career, now you're making a comeback as a new parent or in a new role or getting back into fitness, maybe starting as an entrepreneur, whatever it is that you're doing, understand that your past experiences can feed what you're doing now, but it's not something that you should start comparing and looking at in terms of like this and this, it's completely, it's black and white. And the gray area is who you are within yourself and the growth that you've developed within you for these experiences. And so that is what I have so far. I want to talk to you about this marathon, and it's going to be in Philadelphia. I know I'm going to be carved up because it's after Thanksgiving. So I don't know where I'm going to be in Thanksgiving, but wherever I am, I'm going to be carving up. And I'm excited. I'm excited to shift my mindset and have a coach. I think that's been one of the things that have hurt me the most. And I found a coach who I feel so comfortable working with. There have been other people who have said that I'm not a real runner because I've never done a marathon before, having absolutely no notion of what I have accomplished in my life and as an athlete. And it doesn't make me better than anyone. But at the same time, I wanted to work with somebody who understood my mindset and my approach, and the fact that I don't want to feel and be treated like a person who needs to be, taught everything about running when I know a lot about it. I wanted to be treated as someone who understands the running world and is now getting into a different division, and that I like to be challenged and I like to be coached and I like to be pushed and I like to, but I also at the same time, and this will be my last point, I was very clear on, I don't want this to be a stressful thing. I don't want to be about like go here and go there and go. I just want to run by myself and enjoy my time. And if I end up running with a group one day, fine. But like, I don't want to be in a position where I'm saying no to so many things that I don't want to be going to, or that I can't be making, or I just want to enjoy my life, and this being an added factor. And that's it. And so I found a coach who just moved back to New York from Miami. His name's Glenn, and is a highly successful man, and highly successful, has coached many, many, many athletes, has a track club in Miami, and has coached athletes nationwide, and has a wonderful company called Salis that is, actually will let you tell him, I will actually let him tell you more about it. I would love to have him if he would like to come on for an interview, because it's a wonderful product that helps you with your hydration and electrolytes and just fueling in that sense, in terms of that hydration factor, which, as you know, I don't like running with running belts. Running belts, yes, but like a backpack and doing all these things. Like, it's not the world that I come from. And I know that maybe we'll make some changes because, again, this is a whole new beast that we're going to conquer. But at the same time, it's important that I use the resources that I can that keep me true to myself. And so I am so excited that this is happening. It's going to be phenomenal. And I'm just, day one, or like week one really coming up. I've done a few runs already, and IT band was suffering. So I took a step back today, kind of just took it a little easier. And my goal is just to be healthy and strong and do this for myself, because I said I wanted to run a marathon before in my 30th year of life. And so I'll be barely 31. And I wanted to run a marathon before I get married and have kids. And although I don't know if that's ever happening, I just know that I've got this under my belt now, and I get to start experimenting with myself moving forward. But as always, don't forget to keep being the optimal leader of your life. I love you. I believe in you. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.